the biggest moment of my career almost was I had my brother passed away the week before a fight in Russia. That was rough. I had the fight and I won it at the end. I don't want to be one of those, manosphere guys that are like, sort your shit out and take your responsibility for your life and make your bed. But at the end of the day, it's kind of what it is. If you agree to do something, if you agree to be in this position, and you just got to do it. It's as simple as that. I can't think it wasn't like a Rocky montage moment. It was, I had the fight. He fucked me up. I kicked him in the face. I choked him out. I won. It was great. But that was probably the biggest spot in my career.
Hello, listeners. My guest today is Dan Vinny, a BJJ black belt, MMA, Muay Thai, boxing, and bare knuckle fighter. Dan Vinny has fought worldwide, and he's competed in many martial arts contests in the world's biggest organizations. Expect to learn about training with Conor McGregor, Dan Hardy, and Nicholas Dalby, the evolution of MMA and freak show matches, damage sustained from fighting, using online presence to build a fighter's brand, mental health challenges of a combat sports career athlete, as well as much, much more. This is Mastered. Please welcome Dan Vinny.
I got back from the UK, so we're in Prague now.
Yeah, what are we doing over there?
Just family and stuff. Like I just had a baby, so
Oh, congrats!
1 second.
Oh, hello.
But so to get in the passport and stuff, we had to go and hand things in and whatever else. So that. But back in now.
Yeah. Where was the child born?
No,
UK?
born here, born in Czech Republic. But obviously, because I'm English, he gets the passport. Even though it's not worth fuck all anymore because we left the EU.
Really?
Bro, it's okay. There's a couple things, like for example, if I don't, we're gonna go into too much detail about pointless, but like you can in the UAE you get a pretty decent deal as a UK citizen. Like you can go for a month, you leave for a day, you get another month. It just rotates like that. As opposed to Czechs get some bullshit like 90 days and they have to leave for 120 days or something. So that's a plus. But otherwise, the passport shit, man. So I don't know, but
I thought it was like the gold standard passport. Everyone wants passport,
yes, I don't know, man. I think what Singapore, UAE. I think they got the best ones, but
they're like number one or something.
Yeah. I'll give them what I can. What can you do? I was colonize the joke. Yeah, we ain't got none of that no more. But, it's not like the old days, bro.
And it was your birthday yesterday?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I tried to keep that quiet. Like, this is the thing. Damn. No one I speak to every day, no one said anything. No one, whatever.
But like, oh, your birthday.
Yeah, but I have dickheads who I don't speak to 364 out of the year. Yeah. And I'm like, happy birthday.
Yeah.
and I look, bro, literally, I had a guy who's 30 messages. Yeah. Happy birthday. Thanks, bro. Happy birthday. Once a year. Happy birthday.
That's
Thanks, bro. Happy birthday. And it's been like 15 years, bro. Yeah.
That's a good friend,
I don't know him.
He remembers one day every year, 15 years.
But I don't know him, bro. He must have been the first guy on Facebook, and he messaged me every year.
Well, that's not the only reason I know. I don't know my mom, my dad, anyone's birthday. I'm just lucky that Facebook's like, hey, it's this person's birthday.
For sure.
I'm like, oh yeah.
For sure.
Done my 3 seconds, typed in the little box there, done. Yeah. I'm a good person.
Nah, for sure. I get it.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career, Dan. Like, how did you get started into fighting? What was like the first thing that drew you to going, you know what, I really want to do something either amateur or competitive?
I've told the story before. I wanted to be a pro wrestler, like WWE or WWF at the time. And it was too hard to get into. I couldn't find a wrestling school. They were all up north and stuff. And coincidentally, I used to buy VHS tapes of WWE and whatever, and I saw a UFC 5.
Yeah,
I got the tape, and I was like, "This is kind of shit."
Nice.
But it's not wrestling. But I could do that.
Yeah.
So I bought some more UFC tapes, and I found a magazine, like a Martial Arts Illustrated or something, and it's like fighters wanted. So I called them up, And I was like, yeah, I had a ton of fights, and I did this and that, and I'll fight whoever. And and they got me a fight, and I
Yeah.
got fucked up, bro, like terribly.
Oh,
Yeah,
fuck.
but nah, it was okay. Like I just, I was just a kid. I was just a
Yeah.
kid fighting a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with it, and I'll see how it goes. And that was it. It was really just because pro wrestling was too hard to get into for me. But
Yeah.
and without getting too, violence was always something that was, in my life, sort of thing, and I was reasonably, and I was good at it. I could take a shot, I could give a shot, and I just kind of worked. It just kind of worked for me at the time, and people gave me, attention for it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do the fighting thing, and it beats working every day. But
Yeah, exactly.
if you,
Yeah, it would.
but yeah, that's kind of it, man. It just kind of a coincidence.
Yeah. Okay. And how old were you when you started?
First fight was 15. I was 15. I like I said,
Okay.
and but this was no training. This was no. I had never been to a gym.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So how did you just like saw a flyer or something? You're like, yes, sweet, I'll call them up, go on that, and you didn't have any
Nah,
understanding ideas.
nothing.
Like,
Man.
I was going this.
Like I said, I watched a couple DVD. Well, I watched a couple videos, and yeah, I was just like, yeah, I can fight. I had fights at school or whatever else, and I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. And yeah, that was just kind of it, man. Like, and like I said, I didn't get the concept of training. I never understood, that you were supposed to train. I didn't have any money to go to a gym. No one was like looking after me. So like, yeah, I just thought you just had fights, bro. Like, lift weights or something, and that's it. But yeah, I don't know, man. But yeah.
Like when you first walked into like the cage or the first sort of fight that you did, what were your sort of feelings and expectations when you were coming in? You're just like, oh yeah, this guy seems like I'll be able to take him, or like, what were you think? What's like a first, like before any training, just coming in going, yeah, this will be easy, or were you like, holy fuck, this guy's like older than me,
Yeah.
or what were you thinking?
I obviously, it was a long time ago. This was, 15,
Yeah.
15, 16 years ago. Or longer, I'm not sure. I don't know. But no, like no, I remember thinking it was going to be easy and it was going to be fine. And I was looking over at the guy, and like he was like punching the wall and warming up, and he had like a team. And I was just, and I looked over, and I had my mum drive me to the show.
Your mum came.
And I was like, yeah, and I weren't sure what was happening. Like I weren't sure what was going on, but I don't remember feeling any sort of way.
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling like scared or anything like that.
Okay.
But again, I think that was stupidity. It was like you didn't know that you should be scared. But
Yeah.
But yeah, but that changes, right? It changes with the more experience you have.
Do you think that having more experiences where things can go wrong, like getting hurt, either like a takedown, submission, or anything else that's an ailment, do you think that makes you more risk adverse, or do you think when you go into like another fight, you're like, you know what, I know everything that can happen to me that's bad. I don't give a fuck. I can go into this ready,
I think to a degree it depends on where your life is. You know what I mean? Like, not overly an emotional type of thing, but if you have things that you have to, like, this is the big issue that I have now. Obviously I have a kid. I'm still competing, but it's still kind of like, okay, do I want to take that risk? Do I have to?
Yeah.
And other guys like, do I have to go to work on Monday? Is it worth having this sort of fight or getting injured for I don't know, $500 or whatever it might be for some people, as opposed to if you're younger and you don't have much and you're like, okay, this is a goal, and like, I'm gonna go for it. So sometimes education is a bad thing, knowing what it is.
Yeah. You know too much.
But I don't know. It comes and goes. Like I said, I think everyone who kind of knows me I have. My biggest issue is mental issues. Not to make it sound worse, but like confidence in certain situations or whatever else. So it's like, if I'm in a good spot, it's like no, I see what it is. Especially MMA. MMA is crazy.
Yeah.
Like segueing into the bare knuckle stuff, like, you know what it is. You know what's going to happen. Either you're going to get punched or you're punched. Like, there's less things that can happen. MMA though, like, you move the wrong way and you break your leg somehow, or it's a lot crazier
Wow.
game. So it's harder to plan for. But yeah.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because like with the bare knuckle stuff, the Rockhold and Perry fight, you saw Rockhold go into that pretty confident, and then after he got punched in the face a few times and his teeth went through his lips, and he was like, I don't want to do this. I'm good, And that sort of damage to me as like I'm a casual wanting to be a little bit competitive in fighting and in my future, But from someone that's a complete bystander to that, I think that looks like the most extreme, worst case of something that could happen. And I think that for me, if I was going to a bare knuckle situation, I'd be like, oh, this is like where real damage and something really severe could happen. That's what I wanted to ask you about, that, like moving between, because you've been doing like Muay Thai or kickboxing, MMA, and then going to bare knuckle as well. And you seem quite composed coming out to those events as well. Do you feel like there's you think MMA is the ultimate pinnacle of like, holy shit, anything can happen, versus coming out to those bare knuckle fights?
I kind of think so. Like I'm not the spokesperson for bare knuckle in any form, but I kind of feel like it's a little safer in regards to the big problem. The big problem in combat sport or contact sports is brain injury, right? And I feel like you get lesser brain injury, or there might be studies to back this up, I'm not sure, because of the sense of how the fight goes. Like, look at what happened to Luke Rockhold, for example. I don't want to say he quit. He got his teeth broken and whatever else, but he didn't get knocked unconscious, right?
No.
So of course it sucks that he's going to have to get his teeth fixed and whatever. But at the end of the day, in 20 years, his teeth are going to be fine. You know what I mean? It's not like he went through another 5-10 rounds, getting punched, getting kicked, getting continuously added trauma, as opposed to where in some of these bare knuckle fights you get cut and they stop it. It feels different. You get hit, it hurts. You call it a day. You don't get knocked unconscious. Of course, it happens, but I feel like it's kind of lesser. So depending on what your concerns are, I feel like it could be better for some people. But again, it depends. Like, MMA for me now, like, you have to pay me because there's so much that I can't anticipate happening that could take me out for a while. As opposed to I can weigh the risks up of a boxing match a little bit easier. Like, for example, there was an octagon fight that happened a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, where a guy broke his leg and it wasn't even on a check. Like, he kind of kicked and the other guy kicked at the same time and they boom broke the leg, and that guy's out for however long now. Compound fractures. And how do you even plan for that? So I don't know.
There's obviously no insurance.
Of course not. No.
Any of these.
I don't know. I don't know if I think some of the shows, maybe PFL or something, are trying to do something like that.
Okay.
But I don't know. But so it's tough. But again, if we're weighing up brain injury, then it's different. Then professional boxing, I think, might be a little bit worse. Because of the rules and the structure.
Well, you see them when I go into like boxing gyms. I've been in a lot of them. Like, there's a lot of punchy people. I'm not seeing that in Muay Thai gyms. I'm not seeing that in MMA gyms. But I know MMA hasn't been around as long and it's not as popular now. It's ridiculously popular. But so many boxing gyms I go in, I'm like, okay, that guy's big punch maybe too much.
Well, I think as well, it's the atmosphere, or it's the I don't know what you'd call it. Yeah, the atmosphere for the culture of a boxing gym. Because this is how I was looking. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure back in the day, at least, there was a lot more people involved, right? So let's say I'm running a boxing gym, or I want boxers. I might have 100 people through the door that month. So if 2 of them are punchy, or they get, I've still got 98 people. You know what I mean? I've still got, they can leave. So I can have them spar. I can have them spar 100%. As opposed to an MMA gym where you've got 15 people coming in a month. I've got to protect these people. I can't let them, get beat up. Plus the game, the game of it. Like, you can't be a world class. This is the thing, and this is why the Ngannou Fury fight, I think, people are going to see the difference. If you're a world class boxer, you are, I don't say built different, but you are built to a degree of taking punches like that. Even like, and even people with a suspect chin for boxing standards, for world class boxing standards, it's not the same.
Really?
100%, bro. Like there are very few people because of the difference of the game. Like, you can go, for example, let's say my last 5 fights, I didn't get hit solid one time.
You've been going great. Really?
And that's not. Yeah. I'm not. I'm so good or whatever. But like, I haven't been hit. I haven't been hit once because of the ability of me to do other things. Hit takedowns or kick or move around. You can't do that. You can't do that in boxing. You can, of course.
Yeah, no, you're going to cop punches.
Yeah.
Because this is a block, and that's how you work.
Exactly. Now, of course, guys are going to say, Willie Pep, and there are guys. There are guys that.
Head movement, bro. What do you mean? You just do this.
Didn't work for Ronda, but like. So it's just the different. It's just the different game, man. So you have to have a better chin. You have to, and through finding that out, you get punched. So yeah, there's definitely more punchy people in boxing, but I think it's because of plus there's probably not a bunch of guys who care about people's brain health in boxing gyms you're going to. But
no, there's not. But you're right though. It's like that. It's like all you hear about all those like Cuban training camps and Russian training camps. Like, I train with like a Russian guy here in Malaysia. And he just told me it's just like bodies. Just like put the best people in, see how they go. They get broken, they get knocked out. They just chuck them out, and they're just churning. It's a factory. It's like, who's the best? Who's coming through? There's no thinking or consideration about anything apart from performing.
That's it. And you're trying to, if you as a coach or a trainer, you're trying to get someone who's going to pay you a lot of money. So you have to find the outlier who has a good chin, who has speed, who has the power. So he's like that, and I've heard some crazy shit in regards to boxing. Like, someone we know that we'll talk about later. Like, he had a coach, Russian coach, and he was like, "Oh, Dan, if I get dropped in the gym or something, like, it doesn't count, right?" I said, "What do you mean it doesn't count?" Yeah, because because it's in the gym, and I was told by this guy that it only counts if you're knocked out, like in a fight. But I can't. Sometimes now I forget to flush the toilet after I go, and I'm like, so there's some crazy people in this game, man. But what can you do?
He's just strengthening his brain.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works, right?
Exactly. Chin conditioning is a thing.
That's wild, man. I can't believe that's what happens.
But man, you're boxing now.
Yeah, I am. But I'm just like, I'll just take it easy and like come home and like, I don't remember what I was doing. I'll just not box for a little bit. Like, I've got no. It's not what I do. It's a hobby. You know what I mean? So
it's when you're putting your phone in the fridge and your shoes in the. That's when it's a problem, bro. Like.
Like, it's hot, bro. You need to cool it down sometimes. Is there any pre-fight ritual that you like to do to mentally prepare to come out that makes you feel good or comfortable or ready to go? And do you like to come in from a calm place or an angry place or just a whatever place? What's your sort of like processing?
The last few, like I said, I think I'm at the best position in my career now. I'm in the best point. The last few, I've started doing some breathing exercises, which I always thought was a bit goofy in that, but I started doing that. And realistically, something I try and tell the younger guys, confidence is what's the word I'm looking for? Routine. It's knowing that you did what you need to do, and it's controlling. It's what you can control. Like the worst performances I've had or the worst situations I've been in is when I weren't prepared for something. I didn't prepare. And this is something I almost subconsciously did on purpose, because then I could say, but I didn't prepare properly. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. So, if you don't have your food ready, I didn't eat this morning, so that's why I lost. So realistically, it's just controlling everything you can, understanding what's going to happen within reason, within your control. So So, seeing what time the show's going to start, and then, okay, I'm going to be third, and then I'm going to do this, and at this time I'm going to eat this, I'm going to wear this at that. And so it's just routine like that. Like, I don't necessarily have a set routine. Like I said, I've been doing the breath work a little bit. And that's kind of it. But I definitely would advocate guys having a set routine.
So are you saying that like sometimes you would kind of self-sabotage?
100,
You're just like, oh, I'm not going to do this stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
So later on you can be like, oh, well, it's because of this or because of that I lost or didn't perform as well as you
Yeah, for sure. And that goes from everything, from training, not training, from whatever else. It was always that, if I would have guys say, if you prepare properly, if you did this, you'll be in the UFC. And in retrospect, that's something I regret because, I could see it. But at the time, I was like, well, yeah, but, it'll happen. It'll come. I'll do it later. So I see guys do that. And it's obviously it's how you handle yourself after that, as opposed to if you be just being honest with yourself and like, yeah, that's what I did, as opposed to using it as a crutch and be like, wow, if I did that, I would have fucked that guy up.
Yeah.
But that's the long road I had to, take to figure that out. But
it seems to be going well for you now. Like, I think since I've been watching you fight, like I've known you for 3 and a bit years, but since I've been watching you fight, you haven't lost.
Yeah.
And every single fight I've seen you go into, you've looked excellent.
Thank you.
So yeah, you seem like you must be in like a really good point of your career and how things are going. And you're doing multiple different fights. Like you did like a kickboxing, then MMA, then a bare knuckle, then back to MMA, I think. That's what you were kind of doing the last few years.
Yeah,
right?
like I want to, like I said, I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good spot in my life. I'm in a good situation. So I'm choosing to do it just because I want to do it, as opposed because I have to have some money this week or whatever.
Yeah.
So that, it's cool. Like I want to kind of focus more on bare knuckle these days because I think, like, as much as rankings are bullshit, I got ranked 10th in the world.
You're number 1 or something?
I think 10th.
10th.
I think I'm number 2 in the UK or whatever. But this is the thing with that. I don't want to talk shit about the rankings, but like I was looking at someone posted theirs. I was like, just out of curiosity, let me check mine. Oh, I'm 10th in the world. That's cool. And then I kept looking, and because I posted it, every other guy on Facebook started posting their ranking. And I saw one guy I saw a guy who's like 0-5. And he's ranked like 20th in the world. And I was like, that's not worth it anyway.
He's beat all the other people, right?
I'm like, because there's only 20 guys doing it. You can be top 20.
Okay.
But no, it's nice to see. You know what I mean? It's nice to see occasionally and be like, all right, that's motivation. I'm gonna push this. But yeah, I'll do what I do. But as I said, I'm in the twilight now. So
2 things. I want to go back quickly just to like the pre-fight stuff. Have you ever tried any visualization stuff coming up?
A little bit. I did see some sports psychologist guy at one point.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, because I know one of my friends back home. He's like a sports psychologist for a really big rugby league team, and he says like 90% of it's just like them dealing with things outside their life. So basically what you're saying as well, how they're performing outside the field with things of like family, girlfriends, children, anything else that's going on, and then taking that away and then just trying to prepare mentally and visualizing being successful throughout the game. And that's what 90% of his work is, debriefing about problems and then getting them ready just to perform on the day. Is that something similar to what you were saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's crazy because it's such an important thing, but it's such an obvious thing at the same time. Like, obviously, if your life is terrible, then you're going to perform terrible.
Yeah. So, that's true. It's like any job, right? It's like any job.
It's an unfortunate thing with sports because obviously it's that one day. So you prep this much. It's not a bad day at work because you have 7 of those a week or whatever.
You could do that again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But like I just said to the guys, you have to prepare for that one thing, and get your stuff in order. But if you're meticulous and you look through these things, it's not a big problem. Like, people can do it.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah. And is there any significant moment you can think back in any of your fights where either you came in really, really fresh, or you were like being overwhelmed or in a tough position that you found resilience to overcome a win?
the biggest thing I had, I think maybe the biggest moment of my career almost was I had my brother passed away the week before a fight in Russia I had, and and that was rough, but I had the fight, and it was pretty. I won. I won at the end, but
Okay.
I couldn't necessarily say again. I'm terrible for this, bro. I'm sorry that I'm not giving you the content.
No,
but,
that's okay. I know. I'm just curious. No,
but
that's
no, it's
fine.
like this is it's kind of thing. I don't want to be one of those manosphere guys that are like sort your shit out and take your responsibility for your life and make your bed. But at the end of the day, it's kind of what it is, like. If you agree to do something, if you agree to be in this position and have, you just got to do it. It's as simple as that, right? But so that was kind of that. I can't sing it like it wasn't like a rocky, like a montage moment. It was like I had that. I had the fight. He fucked me up. I kicked him in the face. I choked him out. I won. It was great.
Nice.
But that was probably the biggest spot in my career, for that sort of thing.
Yeah. Was it like, so that was like outside life happening and then something you had to prepare for?
Exactly.
You know what
Exactly. I mean? Because it's not a massive, it doesn't take that much time. This is the thing. And when guys talk about, being a full-time fighter or whatever, like realistically, you're preparing for 15 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that. So it doesn't require all day, every day, or maybe it does. I'm not sure. But, so just have your stuff in order, have your life in order, and that's it. Find the goal, make your goals and do what you have to do to meet them. Simple as that.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is everything else that's outside is sorted and ticked off and meticulous, then everything else generally goes pretty well.
For sure. Because it will commingle, it will intertwine, like if you have a bad situation at home, you're gonna have a bad situation with anything else, and something like this where it is so, polarizing, it's you just got to have everything in line. Outside, and fights are crazy, sometimes, the guy who didn't train harder won, sometimes it's crazy. It doesn't necessarily matter, there's no, especially in bare knuckle, I can't even say why guys win fights, sometimes it's just crazy, right? That guy gets his tooth broken, that's it. So it's kind of like,
why do you think that? Why is it more random, do you feel, or more just like you can't control the variables for a bare knuckle?
I don't really know. I feel like to a degree people aren't preparing the right way for bare knuckle, because it is kind of, I don't want to say it's new, because obviously it's the oldest sport kind of, but I think it's hard to dictate also what's winning fights, it doesn't,
Well, you were doing like a cross guard type thing, right? Last time. I think I was talking to you, and I don't know if you really used that in that fight. You're doing some sort of like forearm guard, Dracula guard type blocking system, right? Is that what you're doing?
I broke the guy's hand. I broke the guy's hand on my elbow.
Because you had the elbow there.
I have a picture.
Right?
I have a picture of it. Like and it's.
And that's why in boxing you can't do that. You can't do that in boxing. Yeah. Like in Western boxing, you can't.
Well, they said in the rules that you can't intentionally hit their hand with your elbow. So you can't. Okay. Now in pro.
So you can't go like you can't do that.
Exactly. You can't do that.
But not they can't punch you.
Exactly. So and how are you going to dictate that? If I'm doing this and you punch it at the same time, how are you going to stop that?
Good luck.
But you play within the rules. You do what you can. But like I said, I'm trying to see what works. That's why I'm kind of interested in that sort of thing, because it is old school enough to where, well, not old school, but it's new enough to where people don't have it solid down. They don't have, okay, this is how you win fights, or this is how you play. So for me, it's kind of like,
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like a throwback to old school MMA, where
we just don't know the variables,
exactly.
Right? Didn't know how this is going to stack up. Okay, I understand now. So it's because there's no set structure system like an MMA boxing fight. It's so routine. You do this training, that training, that training, that training. You do conditioning, do road work, do this, do that. MMA, do grappling, do striking, wall work,
Exactly.
pads, whatever it is. But with this, and you can't spar bare knuckle either. You can spar a little glove, but you can't spar bare knuckle,
No.
can you? Unless you're like a
Yeah,
stampede.
exactly.
What about with yourself with like these more unregulated events? Like I think I told you or I've sent you in the past that there's an organization that does like basically street fighting. It's like everyone's wearing hoodies or masks and balaclavas, and they stand around and they have like boots on, and they just beat the fuck out of each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, yeah. Those guys contacted me, and
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, and I, for a fight that was offered, winner takes all. So if
Yeah.
you lose, you get nothing. 800 euros, right? And from my understanding, it was because I'm a big shot to where I was getting that much. I know for a fact. Now I'm not gonna. Obviously, everyone can Google this. They know what I'm gonna say, who I'm talking about. But there was a fight between a guy where a guy got his ear bitten off. Right.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Both
Yeah.
guys made nothing. They made nothing. They did that. They did that for clout. They did that for followers, just to do it. I
No
swear,
way.
bro. I have it. I have it on it. Both of those guys did it for nothing. So, and I kind of fell out with the guys because they offered me the fight. I accepted it. I was going to do it for 800 euros. And
Yeah, yeah.
and then I was offered more money on a different show. So I was like, sorry, guys. You're a dick. So I got all these football hooligans pissed at me because I didn't go do the fight. But yeah, it's great. But again, in retrospect, depends on the situation in your life. Like I know some of these guys have kids, and they're doing these fights where they're poking each other in the eyes and stuff. And I'm like, I just don't see the reward. But at the same time, I get why you would want to do it. You know, outside of the fact that you're just a crazy guy and want to have a rep. Like it's an interesting concept to see what works. Like for example, you know, you look at the fights back in the day, UFC 12, I think when they started changing things. You know, we don't have enough footage to go back, or it's time where it's like, oh, that would work. That works. Like stuff we do now, no one even really was doing back then. So it's a different, you know. So it's an interesting thing to see what would work, what wouldn't work. But again, that comes with a you know, something you got to pay a cost.
But I can't believe people are doing that for free.
Well, followers, right? Like you can get some money off of followers.
Okay.
But
yeah, you look good with one ear.
no, and this was during
you.
this was during the COVID and stuff, so the guy couldn't wear his mask. Like,
Oh no.
but yeah, man.
Yeah, that's wild, man. That's wild. I saw a couple of those fights. Like it was like the old school UFC. Is that Leopold guy? I think he fought like Gracie, and he was grabbing his hair. And then I watched one of those street fights recently. There's like a Turkish guy who's got like dreads, and he's fighting, and people just grabbing him and just feeding him uppercuts and controlling him with that. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't probably want that if we're going to go and do some unregulated street fight, give these people all these advantages.
Yeah, that's it. I remember when I started, it was like, okay, you shave your head because then they can't grab your hair. And you know, you would wear, I don't even remember wear a vest because it rips off. It's fine. They can't choke you with it. Like, I don't know, man.
Would you do that? There's that Japanese one I think I sent you as well. There's like a floating stage, so it's like a round floating stage. You could wear a gi, you can wear boxing gloves, you can wear whatever. No weights.
Yeah,
jump in.
Okay, this is the thing, and this is quite current for my current situation. So there's a show. There's two big shows in the Czech Republic. One of them's a big one, the last one I fought on, and there's one coming up now. And they're going the route of influencer fights, and you know, 2 versus 2, and slap fighting, and all the crazy shit. And I've experienced so much pushback from people in the gym where they're like, "Oh, you know, you're pushing. We came so far in the sport, and you're going backwards. You're going to where it's a spectacle." And I'm like, I never wanted it not to be a spectacle. Like you know, that's cool. You can have the sport if you want, and that's fine. But there are going to be these people, you know, I don't want to say the lowest common denominator, but there are these people that are going to enjoy to watch this stuff, and I'm one of them. I want to do that stuff. This is the like when I started. That's the stuff what happened. Let's see what. Let's someone might die. Like that's what, that was it. And everything comes full circle, right? Like I remember a couple of years ago, it was like no, guys wouldn't even want to be called fighters. They're I'm an athlete. I do this. I do
Wait, why wouldn't they want to be called a fighter?
Because it's the best example is GSP, right? Like I'm a martial artist. I'm not a
okay.
And of course I get it.
There's something extra,
and it's fine, and everyone can do what they want to do, but this is it. But yeah, it's a little funny now because people forget fast. Like this is what this started as. It's some crazy shit, and those people are always going to exist. People are going to want to see it. People are going to want to do it. And
so, have you had any offers or anything that stands out that you like? I want to do that, like this mixed rules or this specific thing. You're like, that's the one I have to do.
I want to fight. I want to fight Valley 2. I want to fight no rules. The two rules. I don't want to get poked in the eye, and I don't want to get bitten. So UFC 1 rules would be great. You know what I mean? Like there's
just groins,
yeah,
though?
groins,
just
groins
like
fine.
cracking balls. That's all good.
That's fine.
Okay.
Because one, you can wear a cup.
Okay.
Two, there's a certain amount of skill that comes with that. Because there's a certain amount of defense you can do with that, right? Like if we're at range and you try and kick me in the balls, I can maybe kind of check it. As opposed to if we get close and you bite my face. Like I don't know so much about like well, no, you can still argue skill in that, but it's not something I want to risk. But there's a show in Poland that I might end up getting on that do this stuff. But I want both. I want the best of both. I want everyone being professional and within reason, and then I want the other stuff without crazy shit. But
so how do they stop a Valley 2 fight then?
Same submission, knockout. Decision, whatever. But and again, if I'm arguing for it, I can see why it might be safer if we're talking about brain injury. Because if I'm in your guard for 5 minutes, I have to just keep punching you and whatever. That's strong. As opposed to if I headbutt you once in the face and break your nose, we stop the fight. But yeah, we'll see. But this show that's happening here early September, they're quite flexible with the rules and stuff. So I'm tempted to kind of pitch something. I'm not sure what. Maybe no gloves or something like that. But it depends on what the people.
Yeah. Well, what's his name has that?
Masvidal.
Masvidal has a bare knuckle MMA thing, right? We'll be pretty close to what you're saying then, right?
Yeah, but again, I think that people don't understand as well. Like, I think that becomes safer because the knockouts are going to go down. People aren't going to be willing to crack their hands on people's heads as easy, But
it's wild to think that that's the case. Like the less variables you can control, it could actually be way less dangerous in terms of brain health in the long run, because the fights are like, oh, there's too much blood or this thing's broken or whatever, let's stop, Yeah, that is interesting.
But
did you see that MMA fighter came out recently and he didn't warm up and he just jumped and just blew both his knees out?
I did. I'm not even going to lie. Anytime I'll get a bit shaky before fights, I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to, I'll go in. I'll pretend to blow my knees out. No, I'm not actually going to blow my knees out.
Okay.
I'll pretend, I'll fall off. Hey. But you got to pay me still. But, yeah, no, I saw it, man. I saw that. And you get immortalized online. It's tough. That might not have happened any other day of the year. It just so happened at that point, at that time, and that's the crazy thing about fights. You do put yourself out there, and especially now where everything's documented and posted. Like, I don't even know what that show was. That was probably like some little tiny Mexican show on the middle of nowhere.
Jungle Fight Brazil or something, or some little thing. I don't even think it was that big.
Exactly.
It was like a really low level.
Exactly.
Thing,
So it's a tough one.
So I want to ask you more about your life. So like you've traveled everywhere. You've trained everywhere. You've fought nearly everywhere as well, right? Yeah. You've always just been like a nomadic person?
Yeah, I think so. Like I don't know. There's no real reason for it. Like I get, none of my family have ever been anywhere. So it was like, okay, when I got the opportunity, and this is the thing as well. Like, I'm not ranting, but this is my advice to the youth. I know guys that have had 10-year careers so far, and they've never left their country. They've never left England. I swear,
No.
bro. And I get it. And I get it
Really?
because the things that you have to do to get that are risky. No one flew me out somewhere with a full camp of notice and preparation and whatever else. It was, okay, we needed a guy. Are you willing to come tomorrow? Okay, cool. Here you go. But if you're looking to protect your record, or if you're looking to do something, then okay. But this one guy's almost at the end of his career now, and he's never gone anywhere with it. I went on the other end. I was like, okay, any opportunity, wherever I can go, whatever I can do. And like, luckily, because of the influx of, MMA and jiu-jitsu, like, I've been able to get work wherever I go. I've been able to get coaching jobs. Yeah, I've been blessed with that. But traveling is cool. Bro. You're all over the place too.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I love it. Is that kind of like drew you further into fighting? Because you're like, I can just go to like Uzbekistan or Russia or Vietnam and turn up, train, and then I get to fight and I'm getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. So. Like I said, I didn't have a passport till I was 18, 19. So and the second someone's offering you money and whatever, and you're not an Instagram model. It's like, yeah, I'll go.
Why aren't I getting to fly out to Dubai? You know what I mean?
You know what happens in Dubai?
But I'm pretty.
But
I know what happens in Dubai.
But exactly. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll go. But the crazy thing was, leaning onto that is the way things differ. Like, I remember I had a fight 2 hours south of London. Right? So this is my country, this is my town, whatever, and some guys threatened to stab me because I sounded like I was from London, word for word.
What?
Yeah. So I had to fight. I knocked the guy out. I'm watching the fights in the crowd. I'm talking to my friend, and a guy behind me was like, "You sound like you're from London." No, that's a terrible accent, but yeah, the guy was from Bournemouth or something. You sound like you're from London.
Sounds perfect to me.
We stab people. We stab people from London. I swear to you, bro. And then, and then I go on all the way over to Russia or Asia or whatever, and everyone's cool. No one's ever threatened me anywhere. No one's ever given me trouble. So it's kind of,
Which place do you think did you feel like was the best to fight, and then which place do you think is the best to train out of all those?
I think Sweden and Scandinavia was the best place to fight. Like, they're really, obviously I'm not one everywhere. Japan will be the dream. I'd like to get there before I call it a day. But Sweden and Scandinavia, like, the fans are super educated. They get what it is. They're not a bunch of hooligans that want people that want to see someone die. So it's a cool group. It's a cool crowd. Plus they have they have a few decent shows. In regards to training, again, it depends, right? It depends what you want. It depends what you want to achieve. Like, obviously, let's say you go somewhere like Vietnam. If you're okay in Europe, skill-wise, you're going to be one of the better guys there. So if what you want to do is kind of coach or build a name for yourself, going to the less not developed but in experienced places, or the newer places when it comes to the sport, makes better sense, right? Like, I think a thing that people misunderstand, or this is my opinion, obviously, when it comes to training, you don't have to go to the best guys. You don't have to go to the best gyms, especially if you're not the best, the best guy. It's realistically about numbers, Like, for example, like, if back in the day you go, in the UK, you might have 10 people in the class. What's the likelihood of 10 people you're going to have someone really, really good? You might have one guy.
Pretty low.
Exactly. You go to the US where they have 50 people a class, 100 people a class. Because of the numbers, you might have 10, 20 good guys. So I think that's the thing as well. Like, I remember guys, they enjoy the sport, they travel, they go somewhere, and it's like, well, why? Be the best guy in your place first, and then see how that goes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like the big fish in the small pond, right? Or the little fish in the big. I think that's true for a lot of things, though. Like, you might be in one town and one place and think there's only opportunities you have, but once you go out to the rest of the world, there's way more opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And and then
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't understand that already, and you think you're good, and you go somewhere else and everyone beats you up, like that can kind of fuck you up.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was a guy.
Mm.
There was a guy I know who was training at the gym, went to Tiger Muay Thai. First day they put him on a bag. Second day they put him on a bag. Third day he was like, "Yo, I don't want to go on the bag anymore. I want to fight. I want to spar." They had him spar with a guy. The guy kicked his eyeball like out of his head. Like I think he detached.
What?
Not actually, but I think he like detached. Actually, like detached.
It was like a Mortal Kombat game.
Like he detached. I think he detached his retina, and
Shit.
and that was it.
Okay.
That was it. Done. No more nothing. I'm like, well, well, you should have hit the bag. So it's your humility, right? You have to understand that it is what it is. This is your position in life, or whatever. You can achieve whatever you want, but do it the right way.
And following up this question as well, like in terms of fighting like around the world, do you ever feel like any particular place was extremely hostile when you were there fighting towards you, not being from the
More
same
like
place?
I said, 2 hours south of where I lived, but
That's wild.
like there was a show in Bulgaria that was pretty rough.
Okay.
I don't think it was necessarily because I was foreign, but it was pretty rough. But
Okay. What stood out? Why was it rough?
okay, so we go to the show. Already, like everything's so. For example, they said, okay, you can. It was just like 2 days notice or something. Can you weigh 77 kilos? I was like, could I maybe do 80? Yeah, you can do 80. I get there. They're like, I jump on the scale. Okay, you're 80. You can weigh 80, but we're gonna have to take 30% of your purse. I was like, okay, I'll do the 70. So I cut the rest of the weight, almost passed out. Then the mats, the fight, it was on like mattresses with tarpaulin pulled over, so there were like gaps in the thing and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, no.
And then the fight before mine, some guy got knocked out, and there wasn't any doctors who come and like got him. They just waited for him to get up. They just waited for him to wake up and leave. And then after and before I don't remember what it was, but it was kind of implied. Oh, maybe you should, yeah, see how like that. But and I'm not gonna lie, like I let it go to a decision. I lost the decision. I went home, but that was a bit hostile.
Okay.
But it wasn't expressly like apart from the other thing, like we're gonna stab you.
It wasn't the specific crowd. It was because the circumstances didn't seem right.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Wow. Have you gone out to like a really hostile crowd? Like I've seen some of your fights, seems like they're pretty chill. Like I haven't seen anyone really boo or like give you much hostility at all, you know what I mean? Coming out, or is there any particular moment you can think where you're like, oh, okay, everyone's pretty G'd up?
Again in England was the worst. Like I went up north and they, that was pretty bad. But it's like anything. If you prepare properly, if you have everything in place, like those intangibles, those things you can't control, you got to let those things go, But but it's part of the game, and I think
Yeah. Okay, so basically, what you're saying is just like soccer hooligans, tribalism type thing. We're from this town, you're from that town. Was the most extreme out of everywhere you traveled.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, England, bro. Like I go everywhere else, and everywhere's cool. But
everyone's chill. Yeah,
it was the worst, man.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you as well, like with we're talking about you trained with Tom Hardy in the past. How was that experience?
Yeah, cool guy, man. Cool guy.
Yeah.
Approaches things the right way. Approaches people the right way. Yeah, like I was quite lucky. I've been quite lucky. Like I've had a few, celebrity clients or people I've trained with, and I can't. it's like anything. It's understanding what it is. It's understanding the game
Yeah.
and paying your dues, not expecting any special treatment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and you can see the guy's doing well for himself. Competitively.
Yeah. When you were training with him, it was like what 7-8 years ago? Is that right?
Something like that. Maybe less. Maybe less.
And then now, maybe less. Okay. And then at that time, MMA. Oh, I guess it was still really like peaking. Now it's crazy popular, with like Zuckerberg doing all this different stuff and promoting and doing jiu-jitsu competitions and whatnot. But even back then, for him to kind of get involved and take the approach, it seems like he was coming from like a genuine place of wanting to like know and learn.
For sure, because you have to understand as well that the setup that he has to be different. Like, or it should, in my mind. Like, let's say I'm going to go to the gym, and there might be someone outside waiting for me. There might be someone outside who even if they want to just take pictures. But for example, like I was training with Conor McGregor in Dubai, and as soon as he was in the gym, there was an Instagram page that come up, and it was called something like See Conor or Meet Conor or something like that. And all it would do, someone was living in the same block that the gym was in, and as soon as he would come, they would charge people for a subscription, and they would update you on his whereabouts. So they'd be like, "He's at the gym." And then people would pay him. They would pay this guy for this information, and they would come to the gym and would just wait for him. And I remember this one kid, and he waited, and as soon as Conor came, he just went, "Khabib!" And I was like, "Oh man!" Like, this guy waited just to taunt this guy. So imagine, and Conor's obviously a massive star, but imagine being a celebrity, or imagine being rich and not a fighter, and you have to maybe encounter those people. Like, that's crazy. And
it is crazy.
a lot of the guys I know they didn't bring bodyguards, they didn't have special times, they didn't do none of that. I'm like, I can't imagine, man. I can't imagine.
What do you think about where like MMA, jiu-jitsu, all this combat sports stuff is headed? Because it seems to be more gimmicky and more kind of just like everyone can kind of do it. It's all kind of normal. You can just go have a boxing fight. You don't get brain damage. Just kind of, it's like fun. It's not, then no one kind of thinks about the realities of stuff. Like, I'm curious, you've seen it change. You've been in for 20 years or 15 years, so you know the whole picture, how it goes, how things become popular and then fall out. Like, what do you sort of feel? Like, where's this all sort of headed?
I think in regards to that, like, just for the individual people, and for people training, normal people, there needs to be a certain amount of consent. I know that's a trendy word now, but people just need to understand. Like, if you join my gym and we're going to train and or I'm going to get you to fight, you need to understand that, like, this is potentially dangerous. This could change your life. This is a problem. This. As long as you understand that and you take that risk, that's fine. And that's cool for everybody.
Yeah.
In regards to like the gimmicky stuff, it's everything's circular. It's always going to do that. It started off as a freak show where it's going to be in a cage with alligators and someone might die. Like, that's what it started as. And then we're going to go to where we're professionalizing it and we all have something. And then it's going to slowly start going back. And you see it now with these shows in Russia where, two obese women fight a midget or,
Yeah. They got the girl and guy fight. They got a really fit girl and a really fat guy, and the girl just beats the shit out of him. There's seen a couple of those.
And it'll just go round again, and it's just, that's what it is, because fighting or combat will always be a fringe sport. It'll always be something that you don't necessarily want your kids involved in. I think.
But if this Zuckerberg Musk thing happens, that's going to be the biggest fight ever.
But would it, like, are you going to pay to watch it? Would you pay to watch it?
Yeah.
But why? Like,
No, I know it's going to be terrible. It's going to be like two fat guys like drunk at the bar on a Friday night arguing over a piece of KFC. Like, I know it's going to be shit, but that's the spectacle, because it's like this billionaire and this guy, and we're going to see what happens. It's going to be terrible. If they actually put on like a UFC card, like, what is this? What are we looking at?
Yeah.
That's a spectacle. The what if, And I think that's like all those sort of fights, like the original McGregor crossover thing and all the Antonio and
Yeah,
what's his
Muhammad
name, the
Ali.
Japanese guy,
And
you know,
yeah,
and Ali, but like, you know, the Fury. But going back to this question, the Fury and
Ngannou fight.
who was it?
Ngannou.
The African guy, Ngannou. I've got no interest in watching that at all because I know what's going to happen. You know, it's the unknown that makes me go, oh, okay, I want to know.
Yeah. And that's
So-
fine. And like I think, like for example, I saw someone write a status against someone we both know a little while ago where it was, oh, you know, I see these guys are getting paid this much. When I started, I got paid, you know, $2 to fight this guy, and I'm like, okay, are you resentful of that? Like, do you want these guys not? Do you want these guys not to get paid that because you didn't get paid that?
No.
Or what are we doing here? Like, it's cool. Like, whatever position you are in life that you got yourself to, whether you're a Disney kid or whether you're you own Facebook, you put yourself in a position to where you can. And if you're fighting, you're fighting. Like, I used to hold on to this. I used to gatekeep that. Oh, I'm a fighter, so I'm better than you somehow. Or you know, But as you said, everybody can do it now. You know, every random OnlyFans model is having a boxing match. So it's like, does that?
It's doing a boxing match.
So does that mean boxing isn't tough? Yeah. Does that mean you're lesser for not boxing or more for boxing? Like, I don't know. No. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You know, it's cool. You are who you are. Appreciate that. You know, it doesn't make you any better or any worse. You know, it's just something we do. And if you do it, cool, do it well, prepare the best you can. And that's it. But, you know, I'm cool with the spectacle, man. I'm always going to be cool with the spectacle. Like, freak fights are fun. People, you know, this is what it started as, and that's cool.
Always been the appeal for you, though, right? You got into fighting because you wanted to do, like, WWF. And that was sick when I was a kid. I used to be like, holy shit. They hit people with chairs, people's eyes are falling out. What's going to happen next? These people keep having sex with each other. What's going on? I was so fucking surprised as a kid, you know? I loved it too. So I get it. It's the spectacle is what draws people in. But then you get the purists. You get the people that train their whole lives. It's everything. You know what I mean? And they go, if you change or modify those rules and it's all a farce. And then on the other side of it, you just get people like, if I just keep making things and keep getting a little bit more attention, you're going to keep getting pissed off, and this is how I make money. You know?
Yeah, that's it.
So it's weird that's co-opted that space because it just didn't seem that fighting was that thing. It was always to me, the same as you, I felt like this is the real test of like, oh, this person to fight this person. But it doesn't seem like that. It still seems like that. Of course, there's always the purist lane, but the other stuff isn't really happening anymore, you know? It really does feel like it's a freak show.
True. Well, you're going to box soon, yeah? So
Yeah.
Why? What are you doing? How do you feel about this? What's the plan?
Me, I just want to have like 1 or 2 amateur fights because I'm old enough to do that. I'm at an age where I'm getting pretty old, so I just want to kind of do it before I'm like, I think it's a bit too old. You know what I mean? And sustain the damage. Like just like what you're talking about, damage and weighing up risks and stuff like that. And then just continue to do jiu-jitsu as I get older is my thought process. But if I do well and I'm like, okay, and then maybe try 1 or 2 more things along that path, maybe I'll get addicted to them. I don't know. I've never done any striking competitively, you know? So that's my sort of thought process. But it's just for me, I guess, just like ticking off a list of like things I wanted to do in my life. I was like, because for me, I'll give you some background. Like I was 20 and I did boxing. I did boxing for 4 months and I thought it was awesome. I was like, I can hit the bag, I can move, I know what I'm doing. I was heaps confident. I was like starting fights in the street with people like an idiot. I remember one time there was a truck driver, like a Garbo, big fat guy. He was like going really slow and I was like honking my horn behind him. And I was like, I've been doing boxing for 4 months. And then the guy got out of the car with a trolley pole and I was like, all right, bro, let's go. Let's do it. Let's go. This guy was like twice my size. But my thinking was, yeah, I know boxing now. I'm all good. And then he got his garbage truck and drove away. And I'm like, in retrospect, I'm like, wow, I'm a fucking idiot. And then I went to boxing and then I did sparring like a couple of weeks later and I got bashed. And I was like, I'm not going back to boxing. And then it took me like, you know, when I started doing martial art, I did jiu-jitsu at like 27, 28. And then I was like, okay, this is what it really is. And then I've been doing boxing. I started boxing again 3 years ago and sparring and whatnot. And then I was like, oh, I need to like tick off this box and, you know, actually do it proper. So I think that's my feeling to do it, but I don't need to show off for validation. It's just for my own particular goal or bucket list. You know what I mean?
No, that's good, and that's the right way of doing it. And you know, if you keep, because I had this massive, not massive, I had this disagreement with a guy about it on a podcast, to where I feel like everything anyone was doing was for other people's validation.
No, it's only for me. It's only for me.
I didn't get that, man. I didn't get that. Not from you. I mean, just, you know, me personally. I was like, well, now I'm kind of getting it. But just do it the right way and do what you got to do.
Oh yeah, you were training with what's his name? Was it Fazeev? Were you training with Fazeev?
Mm-hmm.
No, who were you training with? We talked about
UFC guy.
I forgot. The UFC guy.
Dolby.
Dolby. He fought Ankalaev, right?
No, he other Dagestani guy. He fought Muslim Sadikov.
Muslim Salikov. Yeah. How was that?
Yeah, cool. I've known Nick a long time. Like I helped him with a few fights. I know his coach / manager, so you know I got brought back. But it was cool. Like you know, like it's a tough one because obviously he made better decisions, he made better choices than I did, so he got to the UFC. You know, and I'm looking, I could get to the UFC. Like, you know, skill for skill. That's interesting. But like, he's cool, and I'm glad he won. You know, I have obviously the biggest thing, the funny thing about that was obviously he's Salikov is a wrestler who throws spinning kicks. I don't wrestle and I don't really throw spinning kicks, but they were like, come help, it'll be great. So I spent 3 days trying to spin kick him in the face. Hurt my back, the whole thing. But I have a video of me. I have a video of me landing a spin kick on him one time. That I'm gonna post. Now that he won, I'm gonna post it on Instagram.
Yeah,
I'll be like,
do it.
But and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's cool. Like, you know, like I said, I've helped a few UFC guys, you know, fights and that. And
any particular person that stands out to you that you enjoyed training with the most, or getting ready for a camp?
There's a guy called Munir Lazaz, fought in the UFC, I think 3-4 times. Still signed, still gonna fight welterweight. Super cool guy, nicest guy. Like, and this is when, like, I just got to the UAE. I didn't have any work. Him and his group paying me for sparring. So I'm like, this is so cool. This is helping me out. And we sparred, and bro, he beat me up so bad. Like, I had headache every day, and every day I'd make the hour journey to Dubai to go spar with him. But the thing was, after the sparring, he'd be so cool again. He'd be like, I'll see you tomorrow. I don't want to see you tomorrow. But no, Munir's a super cool guy. So that was.
Your social media has been pretty interesting as well, Dan. You've got some good posts. You come up with some good stuff.
I don't know, man. I feel like I'm underappreciated. Like,
it's true. You've got funny stuff. I got a couple of my mates that never met you that I heard about you and followers I've talked to. They're like, that guy's pretty funny, man. That's a good
I had one video that almost got 1 million plays, and cocaine, the Dana White cocaine isn't cheap video.
That's right.
Where, like, I was in the gym the other day here, and they had a guy who's a champ Octagon came, and he trained a little bit, and he went off to one of the coaches and went, "Is that the cocaine isn't cheap guy?" I swear. they sent me a message later, and I was like, "Wow, I've made it, bro. I've made it." But I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't know how much you're supposed to share on social media. I don't know, you know, and it's a weird setup still. I don't know. Like, you tell me, bro. Like, what?
It's no. I think that you got two sort of lanes. You got the lane of like the people posting the Ferraris, think of the Andrew Tate, or the chick that's like got her tits popping out, is like heaps hot. Everything's curated and perfect. But that's kind of like 4 or 5 years ago. Now people like authenticity. They're like, hey, I'm doing this today. I'm doing that. My dog died, this happened. They want to know that people are curious, like, oh, this, I'm seeing your life. And they kind of feel like they know you. Yeah. So you got those two things going on. And I think for you, it's the third where it's like, yeah, you share a bit of that, but then you just like have a laugh. So you just make a meme or chuck something out there, and I think that's the third
But
category.
what are you? So
That's the
obviously,
third
obviously,
category.
you're doing this stuff now. You're moving into the podcast and that. How deep are you going to go? How far are you going to let people in? Like, what are you going to be doing with this stuff?
I think just being authentic and being vulnerable is important. And for me, I've always been someone that puts masks up. Like I put masks up to feel more comfortable, more safe, or I kind of blend with people to feel more comfortable in myself. But I think being vulnerable and being authentic is important. You know, there's obviously some things you can't share that might be too far, but letting people in a little bit more than you need, I think, is going to help you if you're trying to establish yourself as an identity on the internet. Absolutely, I think it's crucial. Like, unless this is the other thing, you want to play a character, and some people play great characters and makes them so interesting you can't stop watching them. So it depends. Like for me personally, like I do communication coaching as well. That's like my business for to help people with their confidence and speaking, and people from like different parts of the world. And I can't be fake with them and then have something else and be real, you know? So if I'm being genuine with them to help them build real confidence in themselves, and I want to be kind of the same way on the online world, if that makes sense, you know? And I think that's why authenticity is like the biggest currency right now. That's the thing that people want to see, because it's real. They get a window into someone's life and get to learn about them. And generally, I don't think people really care that much. They just want to be invested. It's a story, you know? It's a story. It's like a soap opera. Like, oh, what's this person doing now? Oh, the girlfriend broke up with them. Oh, shit, they're going to be heaps like moody now, you know what I mean?
True.
So it's stuff like that, you know? I think that's an interesting aspect of sharing stuff online. But for you personally, I don't know. Maybe it is kind of like blending a bit of that and your humor. Like, you're a funny dude, man. People want to see that. People want to have a laugh, and I think that's cool shit. You know?
Yeah, like I've got a guy now who wants to follow me around. Like he wants to do a documentary type thing, and it's that same thing. Like, what do you do? Like, and you do have to open, like you said, you have to be.
You have to open up.
But then to what degree? And if people don't ask the right questions, and then you open, like, you know, I just asked you how your day was. But then this happened, and I got like 20 years ago, my uncle touched me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man.
There's a level.
There's levels, but
there's a level.
I'm not.
It's
hard. I'm not good
at
setting that, man. But I'll figure it out. But.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it just takes, like, not that I'm a trained media person, but I feel like it's just time under. It's like sparring or anything else. Like, you get in there, you're comfortable, you know, okay, these things I should definitely talk about. These things, no. It's just, you feel like these things aren't going to get you anywhere, or you don't feel happy to talk about those things, you know? So I think it's the same thing, the same application. So I think it's good for you, man, just to get people out there, get people in your face, get them doing that, and then eventually you'll craft the right way, you know, and it'll help you build that the right keys you need to shine where you need to shine, to help you get extra eyes and get you those fights that you want to get, you know. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Oh man, I'll run some stuff past you in the future.
Yeah, please, anytime, man. I want to help. And when I'm in Japan, I'll ask Ensign and I'll ask Yuki if there's any like other like big events, and maybe I can. I know that you know about that guy Shrek. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
He's pretty interesting. The guy's is a little phenom, so I think they all know them in those sort of circles, and there's definitely stuff going on. I'll see if there's anything.
I was looking at that. I was looking at like getting on Pancrase.
Yeah. I love Pancrase
because we're going in November. But before that, I don't fly over to fight. I pay my own thing. I'll do it for free. Like I just, you know.
Okay.
Let me know, man. Let me know.
Absolutely.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, I will.
Nice.
It only takes me 10 seconds to have a chat, so yeah, I might as well.
Nice.
I'll see. Is there anything else you want to have a chat about, like in terms of like where you want to head next in your career, or anything you want to discuss about your next upcoming fights or anything like that?
Well, this is all right. We'll go in detail about it. So, I was offered two things. Right, I was offered one of the bigger fights, one of the bigger shows here, and then this little sideshow one I told you about. Now the problem is, what do I take? You know, what do I take? So I've got one way tougher opponent, more money. I got another one, way easier opponent, not bad money. Right now, Now, the thing that I got, normally, like, money's money, I'm going whoever pays me the most. But the thing was with this, they used a picture of me and Tom Hardy to promote, right? And I was like, bro, don't do that. Like, yeah. They said, okay, well, how about we send you X amount of money as an apology? I was like, upfront for nothing. I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So they did. And I'm kind of like, fuck, like, you bought my allegiance now, you know? Like,
yeah.
on top of the fact that, you know, I have a kid, I'm getting 3 hours of sleep a night. And this other guy, now his record's something like 2-20. I'm like, I could go viral on this guy. 2-20. But this is the crazy thing, bro. He's not bad. Like, the 20 guys he lost to were all like almost UFC vets. He's got like 2 or 3 actual UFC vets.
Wow.
So he's not like,
so
he's not terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do I take the easy fight? Do I not?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of drama here as well because of the show adding all this freak fights and stuff. The what's the word I'm looking for? They're like, oh, this is
commission?
No. The guys here, there's no commission, you know. But there's guys who are like, oh, it's bad for the sport. You're bringing us back 20 years, and I'm like, well, those are the guys. So that
what sort of fight are you doing?
No, it's just an MMA fight. But along with the MMA fights, on the card, they have a butt slapping contest between 2 girls. They have a 57 kilo guy versus a 157 kilo guy. They have a famous policeman here fighting a famous drug dealer here. Like, and
that's awesome.
They build it as good. They've built it as good versus evil.
Good versus evil.
I'm like, oh no. So it's kind of tough. Like, I want, like this is the reaction.
Yeah.
If I told you, oh, you know, the first fight was on the UFC, you're like, that's cool. But then I told you all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma now, man. I don't know which one to take, but I might put it to a vote on Instagram or something.
Yeah, I reckon that. Do that. I reckon pick the most fun.
Okay.
Pick the most fun.
Okay. Well.
Why not? You gotta enjoy the process, right? You feel like, oh, this would be fun, and that's the story, that's the memory, you know, versus like a bit more pay.
True.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the fighter. I'm not considering like legacy and this and that and all. Like, you got to think about all these different things.
Legacy's bullshit. You know? Man. Legacy's bullshit. This is why guys are still talking about Khabib. Like, Khabib never did nothing. Like,
anything else that you want to add out to any aspiring fighters or people that are like looking to get into fighting or fight competitively as a career?
As I said before, man, you know, be smart. Take the opportunities when you can, because, you know, you never know how long it's going to last. And build a social media, build a something, have something else, even outside of fighting, like when you stop fighting, like, and that could be a career, obviously, that could be something. But, you know, like I said, people are talking shit about guys like Jake Paul and whatever else, but they're still fighting at the end of the day. Anyone, as we've just said, can literally fight. So you have to call them a fighter. So they're part of the team, but they're making better money than you because they have a presence already. They have a name. They bring something to the game. So do that. Don't just come in and think fighting's enough, because it's not. Every other guy can fight. You know, build a name, build a brand, make money.
You're right.
You know?
No, you're right. Like, social media is like the resume, the modern day resume.
And if you're not doing that, do it for the stories that when you're old and your grandkids are asking you what you did, and, you know.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's a good approach.
Yeah, you know, man.
Good approach. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate your time, man.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to the entire episode of the Mastered Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen throughout the entire episode and your patience. One thing that we're trying to do is improve the Mastered Podcast. So what that means is anything that you liked about the episode, anything you thought was okay, or anything that we might like to change, we want to hear your feedback. So leave a comment down below. Thanks again for listening to the Mastered Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.